across Thailand. From the busy streets of Bangkok to the quiet rice fields of the countryside, you will see them everywhere. Small, ornate structures perched on pedestals, painted gold or red, decorated with garlands of marigolds, incense sticks, and trays of food. At first glance, they look like elaborate dollhouses, miniature temples standing in front of homes, hotels, and even shopping centers. But these are not toys, nor are they decoration. They are spirit houses, known in Thai as San Phra Phum. A spirit house is built to invite the guardian of the land, the Phra Phum, to dwell in comfort. Thai tradition teaches that every piece of land already belongs to spirits, and when humans build on it, they must offer the spirits their own home. In return, the guardian spirit blesses the household with protection, prosperity, and peace. That is why offerings are given daily: fresh water, flowers, rice, or even small bottles of red soda, believed to please the spirits with their sweetness. By day, spirit houses shine with beauty and devotion. The smoke of incense drifts skyward, blending with the sound of morning prayers. Birds perch nearby, pecking at leftover rice. Tourists snap photos, marveling at how seriously Thais treat these little shrines. To most, they look charming, colorful, even comforting. But ask the locals, and they will tell you something more. Spirit houses are not ornaments. They are contracts. A family builds one to make peace with the unseen, and in return, they must keep their promises. If neglected, the spirits inside may grow restless. If disrespected, they may grow angry. And once a spirit house becomes cursed, it does not simply fade away at night when the incense has burned to ash and the streets fall silent. Some say the miniature homes are no longer still. Shadows move within them. Tiny doors creak open. Offerings disappear into emptiness. Those who walk too close at midnight whisper that they feel eyes watching from inside. Spirit houses, the people warn, are never truly empty. In Bangkok's old quarter, tucked between shop houses selling fabric and gold jewelry, there was a family-owned store that had stood for decades. When the shop first opened, the owner followed tradition. He hired a craftsman to build a spirit house at the corner of the property, placing it on a raised pedestal painted white with golden trim. On the day it was installed, monks were invited to chant blessings, and offerings of rice, flowers, and incense filled the air. The neighbors praised the family's devotion, and for years, the shop prospered. Customers flowed in, business thrived, and the family enjoyed good fortune. But time has a way of eroding discipline. The second generation who inherited the store was not as devout as their parents. In the rush of business, the daily offerings became less frequent. Incense was forgotten. Bottles of red soda stood unopened until flies gathered. Dust began to settle on the small roof of the shrine. Even worse, when renovations were planned, the shop owner moved the spirit house aside like an inconvenient piece of furniture, leaving it leaning crooked near the alley. It was then that misfortune began. A customer slipped on the shop's front steps, breaking her leg. A delivery truck collided with a motorbike right outside their door. Stock spoiled mysteriously overnight, as if something unseen had tampered with it. The family grew uneasy, but the owner waved it off as coincidence. Then came the illnesses. His wife fell suddenly sick, plagued with fevers the doctors could not explain. His children woke screaming from nightmares of being trapped in a small wooden house, unable to escape. Neighbors whispered among themselves, "The spirits have been angered." When the old grandmother next door saw the neglected shrine leaning in the alley, her face turned pale. She told the owner firmly, "You built them a home. You made a promise. Now you have broken it." But he only laughed nervously, dismissing her warning. He had no idea that the curse had already begun, and that what stirred inside the miniature house was watching closely, waiting for more. The nights grew uneasy inside the shop. At first, it was only small things. The sound of knocking on the walls after closing, the faint creak of wood when the shop was locked and empty. The family thought it was rats or loose boards. But when staff began to complain of noises that came from the shrine itself, their denial faltered. One worker, staying late to count stock, swore he heard a sharp tap, tap, tap coming from the miniature house leaning in the alley. When he peered out the back door, the tiny door of the spirit house was ajar. No one had touched it. The worker left immediately, refusing to work late again. Neighbors started to notice something too. At odd hours, a pale figure of a woman was seen standing near the spirit house. Her long hair obscured her face, her white blouse fluttering though the air was still. Sometimes she simply stood, watching the shop's windows. Other times, she seemed to crouch, peering into the miniature home as though she lived inside it. Inside the family home above the shop, sleep brought no relief. The owner's children woke crying, describing the same dream. They were trapped inside a wooden house no bigger than a cupboard, its walls pressing inward, and outside they could hear someone laughing softly. The wife's fevers grew worse, and she sometimes woke with bruises across her arms, as though invisible hands had grabbed her during the night. Then came the smell. Customers complained of a sour, rotting odor near the shop's entrance, though nothing spoiled could be found. Flies gathered by the spirit house, even when no offerings had been left there. The grandmother next door, passing one evening, whispered that she could hear voices murmuring inside the shrine, too faint to make out. Still, the owner insisted there was nothing wrong, but each denial only seemed to invite more. And in the silence of the midnight streets, the miniature house no longer seemed so small. Its shadow stretched longer, its presence heavier, as if the spirit inside was waking, hungry for what had been promised and denied. Fear finally broke the shop owner's pride. With his wife's illness worsening and his children refusing to sleep in their own beds, he agreed to seek help. At the urging of his neighbors, a respected monk was invited to perform a cleansing ritual for the spirit house. On the chosen night, the alley behind the shop filled with the scent of incense and candle smoke. The monk sat cross-legged before the shrine, his orange robes glowing softly in the lantern light. Around him, the family and neighbors gathered in silence, hands pressed together in Y. The monk began to chant. His voice was steady, rhythmic, each syllable carrying the weight of centuries of ritual. At first, everything was calm. The flame of the candles flickered gently in the night air. But as the chanting grew louder, the small shrine began to tremble. The wooden pedestal shook as though struck from within. One incense stick toppled, then another. Though there was no wind, the monk's voice did not falter, but his brow furrowed as though he felt the resistance. Then came the sound. From inside the miniature home, sharp knocks echoed, 3 at a time, like fists striking wood. The family gasped, clutching each other. A shadow flickered behind the tiny windows of the shrine. It moved quickly, shifting from side to side, far too large for such a small space. Several witnesses later swore they saw something more. A figure crawling out from the miniature doorway, black and shapeless, dragging itself along the ground before dissolving into the night air. Others said they saw a pale woman crouched by the shrine, her face hidden, her body trembling with rage. The monk ended the ritual with a warning, His voice was grave as he told the owner, "This spirit was invited. It has a home here. You cannot simply dismiss it, nor move it carelessly. You must honor it, or you will suffer its anger." But the owner, his pride still stung, muttered under his breath that he would not be ruled by a wooden dollhouse. In that moment, he sealed his family's fate. The spirit had shown its power, and still he refused respect. The curse was far from finished. The monk's words should have been enough. The neighbors begged the shop owner to restore the shrine, to clean it, and to resume the daily offerings. But the man was stubborn. He refused to bow to something he could not see. To him, the trembling and shadows were tricks of the mind, nothing more. His pride outweighed his fear. One morning, when the alley was quiet, he took a hammer and marched toward the leaning spirit house. His wife cried out for him to stop, but he silenced her with a glare. With one swing, he struck the tiny roof, splintering the wood. The garlands that had once hung there fell into the dirt. A second swing shattered the miniature door. The air grew suddenly heavy, pressing against his chest, but he raised the hammer again. That night, the punishment began. His wife woke screaming in the dark. Deep claw marks had appeared across her legs, raw and bleeding as though something had raked its nails against her skin. The children wailed from their room, saying they had seen a woman crouched in the corner, her hair long, her face pale, whispering in a voice too low to understand. The lights flickered, and the smell of rot filled every corner of the house. The next morning, the shop owner stumbled outside to the alley, determined to finish the destruction. But what he found stopped his heart. The spirit house stood there again, upright and whole, its tiny roof gleaming in the sunlight as though no hammer had touched it. The broken wood he had left behind was gone. In its place, new garlands of marigold hung fresh, their petals damp with dew. The neighbors shook their heads. They told him quietly, "A spirit house cannot be destroyed by mortal hands. Once you invite a spirit, you must honor it. The only way to move it is with ceremony, prayers, and respect. Destroy it, and it will rebuild itself. Disrespect it, and it will rebuild its anger." The shop owner's stubbornness had crossed a line. The curse was no longer a whisper. It was alive, and it would not be ignored. The shop owner finally broke. His wife refused to stay another night in the house. His children begged to sleep at their grandmother's, too frightened to close their eyes under his roof. The family business had all but collapsed. Customers stayed away, whispering that the shop carried bad luck. Even the staff resigned one by one, unwilling to endure the nightly terrors. At last, humbled and desperate, the man returned to the monk who had warned him. With weary eyes, he admitted his mistake and begged for guidance. The monk agreed to perform a relocation ceremony, a ritual to invite the spirit to move peacefully into a new home. On the appointed day, the alley once again filled with incense and chanting. The old shrine was carefully lifted, not destroyed, but placed upon a cart. Offerings of rice, fruit, water, and even small bottles of red soda were stacked around it. The family followed as the shrine was wheeled slowly through the streets to a temple ground. There, beneath the shade of a Bodhi tree, a new spirit house had been built. The monk's chants rose steady and strong, guiding the restless guardian into its new dwelling. When the ritual ended, the air grew lighter. The wife's fever broke within days. The children slept without nightmares. The shop reopened, though business never returned to its former success. The family survived, but the scars of what had happened never left them. The owner, once arrogant, never again dismissed the unseen. He spoke little of what he had endured, but every morning he was seen outside the new shrine at the temple, placing offerings with quiet hands. To anyone who asked, he gave only a short reply. Do not treat them as decoration. They are homes. They are contracts. And contracts must be honored. And so the cursed spirit house became a warning to others. Across Thailand, people still place their garlands, light their incense, and pour sweet soda into tiny cups. By day, the shrines gleam with beauty. But at night, when candles flicker low, the miniature homes are never truly empty.